and it can use anything as an example, but we'll just say bullseye shooting. Let's just say that's your hobby, you're a bullseye shooter, and you go, and 100 is a perfect score, and you normally shoot about a 90. And so that's your self-image is at a 90. You feel like, yeah, I'm about a 90 shooter. In this case, you go, oh, I'm a B-class shooter. I usually finish, whatever, 75% or whatever it is. And so you go out one day, and you're shooting, and halfway through that match, you're not doing very good. You're well below average. You're like on pace to shoot an 80. So what's going on in your mind and kind of in your body? You're feeling like, what's wrong with me today? This is not me. I'm not supposed to shoot an 80. I'm supposed to shoot a 90. And more often than not, because you really feel that way, the second half of that match, you'll find yourself doing better than you would normally do, even better than you normally do. And then you even out somewhere around that 90 because your self-image kicked in. Unfortunately, though, it works the same the other way around. Halfway through the match, you're doing better than normal. You're like on pace to shoot a 95. Of course, you want to shoot a 95, but you don't truly feel in your mind and your heart of hearts, you don't feel like I'm supposed to shoot a 95. Because you don't feel that way, the self-image comes in again, but this time it's negative, brings you down. Second half, you do worse, and you even back out at that 90. So I personally think I've seen that so often in people. I do believe there's definitely something to that. In general, though, not that hard to understand. The challenge to understand is how do we change our self-image? How do you actually truly get yourself to believe that you are on that next level that you've never proven yet, but you have to convince yourself that you are. And one thing I did, and I am somewhat passionate about it, I used this to win my first couple of nationals. I'm not saying it was everything, but I think it was a part, was the directive affirmation, similar to what is with Winning in Mind. Some of you guys have probably heard that book or read that book. It's a good book. The two books that I got a lot out of was that one, and it was with Winning in Mind by Laney Bassam, he was an Olympic gold medalist rifle shooter in the 70s. And Saul Kirsch's, I think it was Thinking Practical Shooting. That was a pretty good book too. I've read a lot of other books. Those shooting wise, those are the two that kind of stood out. Your directive affirmation is all about having a goal, and it's got to be a specific goal. Okay, I want to be a better shooter is not a good goal, because what does that actually mean? What do you want to do? Do you want to make A class? Do you want to win this match? Do you want to beat so and so or whatever it is? And so the first sentence, that goal is that goal like it already happened. So, for me, actually, it really was. I am the such national champion. This was 6 months before, or 3 or 4 months before. That was the first sentence of this paragraph, little goal. And then, a few sentences or paragraph of just kind of personal positive things. I work hard. I perform my best under pressure. I am supposed to win. Things like that. And the last sentence is the same as the first. Whatever your goal is, specifically whatever your goal is. I am the national champion. And just jot that on a couple of note cards and put it to where you come to it throughout the day. Maybe one in your car, one in your bathroom, or whatever. And when you come to it, it's very important that you say those words out loud to yourself. Very important to say them out loud, not just like in your head, but you say that. And so over time, you do this dozens of times, maybe even hundreds of times. It's just psychology. You're in part at least tricking your brain into believing that it is supposed to happen, almost to the point where you believe that it's already happened. And when it can matter, and again, in this case, it's obviously not magic. If you're trying to win a match, a national champion, whatever, one dude can do it. 10 guys are doing this thing, only 9 of them it's not going to work for. Only one it's going to work for. But you're playing the odds, because where it matters is in those critical times. Shooting is like a lot of sports where you spend so much time in a year, think of all the time you spend training, whatever, driving to the range, but it comes down to how you perform in a few seconds. I mean, literally, the entire nationals takes you 2 minutes to shoot, maybe even less than that. That's all the time that you're actually behind the gun. So it's like all this time, and it really matters in this amount of time. And that can create a tremendous amount of pressure on somebody. So if you're in that situation, and you feel, and you're, against your competitor, and assuming you're similarly skilled, because that obviously has a lot to do with it. But if you're somewhat equally skilled to somebody, and you believe a little bit more than they believe that it's supposed to be you that wins, not them, but you actually feel that way, it's an advantage. Doesn't mean you're always going to win, but it would mean that out of 10 times you're going to win more than he's going to win. I really believe there's a lot to that. But you have to do this. This is the work you have to do ahead of time to kind of get yourself to believe that. And it's got to be, obviously things have to be reasonable. If you're a C-class shooter and you want to be the national champion this year, it's probably not going to happen. Right? But
what?
Reasonable.
I'm done.
However, it doesn't matter who you are, whatever goal you make, if you reach that, you can always set another goal. So, you're always doing something, shooting for something after that. But that's, for me, that was the hardest part. And don't get me wrong, it has to do with a lot of it. It's not like, okay, if you don't achieve your goals, it's because you weren't doing it right. I mean, there's so many other factors that come into play. There really is. There's a lot of natural talent and some luck involved and a lot of things. But this is definitely a big part. For me, though, coming up, I made Grandmaster, and I knew physically that I could do this stuff. I knew I can draw this fast. I can do this. I can do that. I know I can do this as fast as these guys. But, in my mind, those guys, the guys that were there, more popular, they know their names, they've won, they're here, and I'm somewhere below them. And I realized, first going to national, did pretty good in the top third or fourth or whatever. Then after a few years, like, that wasn't good anymore. I was, first time I'm going, I'm up there, but after a while, I don't want to be fourth. I want to win. And I don't know if that helped me or not. But I realized earlier on, though, if I was ever going to win and beat those guys, I had to get it in my head that I was even with them, that I was not below them, which is very hard to do because I had not done what they've done, and I just haven't. So convincing myself was very hard, but I did a lot of this stuff I'm talking about, and it did help me. I mean, was it a deciding factor? I don't know, but it did make me feel at times that it was supposed to happen to me. I was supposed to win. And that's, it's a big thing. And it goes and comes, because believe me, I feel pressure and I get nervous just like anybody else. I definitely do. And it's unpredictable. Sometimes I've been rock solid in some of the biggest matches, the biggest situations, and I don't know why, I'm awesome. And other times I've been nervous and like borderline shaken when it actually wasn't even a huge deal. And I can't put my finger on exactly why. We're human, And if we could, then you just never lose, right? You just go on and crush everything all the time. But definitely not the case. There's a lot to it. Bottom line, though, it does a lot come down to being positive. And I am a believer to some extent. The words that you say that come out loud out of your mouth become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we can't help, I'm included, none of us can help having self-doubts about things, but you can always help what you say out loud. So by almost every class I go to, I hear a lot of the same stuff, and I know it's kind of in humor and in joking. I suck at shooting swingers, or I always screw up the first stage, or I can't hit steel very well at distance, or something like that. All they're doing is further convincing themselves that that's going to continue to be the case. You can't help but feel it, but don't ever say that out loud. You don't say that out loud. You either say nothing, or preferably you say the opposite. And you probably don't say that in front of a bunch of other people. It might sound kind of arrogant, but that's what you say, though. I shoot swingers really well, whatever it is. I do well on the first stage. And again, none of this is magic, but it's just it's all pieces to a puzzle, and you're just playing the odds. It's just something I think a lot of people overlook. You go out and practice and train, which is very, very important, maybe more important. But when it comes down to it, it makes a lot of difference. Because the more you put into it, the higher level you get, the more hours and money and all this put into it, the more you are kind of, to some extent, creating a little more pressure on yourself. whether you want to or not. And a lot of times that's what you're doing, because you're more invested. I don't care who you are. When you're more invested in something, it's going to matter more to you. It's probably going to bother you a little bit more if you don't do as well, as opposed to somebody that's just going there and they don't really care how they do. So just there's something to that. But anybody got any questions on any of that?